I used to think the worst thing that could happen in a hospital was bad news from a doctor. I was wrong. Sometimes, the worst thing is standing right in the coffee shop lobby, smiling, and holding on to everything I thought was mine. The smell of antiseptic will never be the same. My name is Elena. I am 36 years old, and I am a forensic accountant, which means I find stories and numbers that people try to hide. Today, I was at St. Jude's Mercy Hospital in Boston, but not for myself. I was here for Marcus. He's my mentor, the man who taught me everything, the closest thing I have ever had to a father. He had just survived a complex 7-hour heart surgery. The air in the ICU waiting room was thick and pressurized. For hours, I had been breathing in a toxic cocktail of antiseptic, stale sweat, and the faint, sugary smell of anxious vending machine snacks. The only sound was the rhythmic, electronic beep of a distant monitor, a metronome counting down seconds I was terrified to lose. The fluorescent lights overhead were a harsh, unforgiving white, buzzing faintly, making every worried face look pale and ghostly. I felt hollowed out, my bones aching with a weariness that had nothing to do with sleep. After the surgeon finally came out and gave us the cautious, "So far, so good," I felt a sliver of relief, just enough to realize I was about to collapse. I told Marcus's wife I needed air, anything other than this sterile, suffocating hope. I took the elevator down to the main lobby. It was brighter here, louder, with the clatter of trays and the murmur of conversations. But the smell of bleach was just as strong. I just wanted a coffee, even the burnt, lukewarm sludge from the lobby cafe, and 5 minutes where I wasn't listening for a code blue. I was halfway to the counter when I saw him. Through the wide glass panel of the cafe, sitting at a small, secluded table. My husband, Liam. My brain stalled. It was a simple error in the data. Liam was in New York. He'd left 2 days ago for an emergency business trip. He'd kissed me goodbye, his hand on my cheek, his eyes full of convincing, manufactured stress. But this was not New York. This was St. Jude's, and this was Liam. He was wearing the dark blue cashmere sweater I'd bought him for his birthday. He looked handsome, charming, exactly the man I married. He was not alone. He was holding the hand of a young woman. She couldn't have been older than 25. She had long, dark hair and was crying, but in a delicate, cinematic way. Her shoulders shook softly, and Liam, my Liam, was leaning in close, whispering to her. He raised his free hand and gently stroked her hair back from her face. Then he smiled at her. It was a smile I recognized. It was the smile that had disarmed me on our first date. It was the smile he'd given me when he said my name at our wedding. It was tender, all-encompassing, and protective. It was a smile I had not seen directed at me in months, maybe a year. The exhaustion vanished, replaced by a sudden violent surge of adrenaline, cold and sharp as ice water in my veins. The lobby noise faded. The world narrowed to that table, to his hand on hers, to that smile. I stepped out of the shadow of the doorway. My shoes made no sound on the polished floor. I walked right up to the table. Liam. My voice sounded strange, too calm. He flinched as if I had struck him. His hand snapped back from hers, pulling away so fast he nearly knocked over his coffee cup. His face was a horrifying, rapid transformation. The gentle, feigned concern for her instantly dissolved, replaced by a raw, absolute panic as his eyes met mine. The young woman looked up, her pretty face stained with tears, her expression shifting to simple curiosity. She looked at Liam's pale, frozen face. Then she looked back at me, tilting her head. "Oh," she said, her voice soft. "Is this your sister?" The word sister hung in the air, thick and sour, mixing with the smell of floor wax. Before I could process the absurdity, Liam's hand was on my elbow, gripping me hard. He was propelling me away from the cafe, half pushing, half guiding me into a quieter alcove by the elevators. "I'm so sorry, Chloe. Just 1 second," he muttered over his shoulder, his voice a strained whisper. The moment we were out of her sight, the words exploded out of him. "Elena, God, what are you doing here? I thought you were upstairs." "Liam, who is that?" My voice was flat. "It's nothing. It's work," he said, talking too fast, his eyes darting back toward the cafe. "That's Chloe Vance, her father, Harrison Vance. He's a huge client, a massive account. He was just diagnosed upstairs. It's bad, Elena, really bad, terminal. She's devastated. I was comforting her, that's all." The explanation was slick, practiced, sliding right off him. But the data points did not match. The comforting hand-holding, the intimate hair-stroking, the smile. "Then why?" I asked, the words feeling heavy on my tongue. "Did she call me your sister?" He did not even blink. A flicker of annoyance, perhaps, but the next lie was already loaded. I told her my family situation was complicated, that I had a very protective older sister. She's distraught. Elena, she's confused. The stress. She just mixed things up. It was too smooth. As a forensic accountant, I know what a fabricated ledger looks like. This was a fabricated life, and he was presenting it with the confidence of a chief executive officer reporting record profits. His panic was receding, replaced by a practiced, condescending concern. He softened his voice, reaching out to touch my arm. I flinched. "You look terrible," he said, his tone dripping with false sympathy. "You're completely exhausted. This thing with Marcus, it's clearly affecting you. You're wound so tight you're seeing things that are not there." He was gaslighting me. Right here in the lobby of St. Jude's, he was trying to convince me that my reality was a symptom of my stress, not his betrayal. "Honey, you need to go home," he urged, pushing the narrative. "Get some rest. I'll handle this. It's just work." I did not argue. I did not cry. My mind had clicked into professional mode. The emotional shock was vacuum-sealed, packed away behind a wall of cold analysis. While he was busy trying to manage me, I was processing the evidence. My eyes focused on a memory from 60 seconds prior, the woman's hand. The one he had been holding. On her right ring finger, there was a flash of light. It was not an engagement ring. It was a massive, cushion-cut diamond cocktail ring. It was ostentatious, expensive, and completely inappropriate for a 25-year-old woman supposedly grieving her father's terminal diagnosis. It was a celebration piece. I looked back at Liam. His face was tense, waiting for the hysterics he clearly expected. I gave him nothing. I just nodded. A slow, empty nod. The relief that washed over his face was immediate and disgusting. He thought he had handled it. He thought I was the tired, emotional wife, easily dismissed. It was a fatal miscalculation. "Good," he said, his voice firming up, back in control. He walked me to the main exit, his hand on the small of my back, a gesture of ownership, not affection. He steered me toward the parking garage. "Listen," he said, stopping me before I pushed through the doors. "Do not mention this to anyone. Seriously, Elena, this is a major client confidentiality issue. If word got out about Vance's diagnosis, it could tank his company stock. It's a very delicate situation." "I understand," I said. My voice was a monotone. "Client confidentiality. Exactly. Go home. I'll call you later from New York." He watched me walk into the garage. I got in my car. I even started the engine. I waited until I saw his car, the black Audi I had helped him pick out, speed out of the garage and turn toward downtown. I turned off the engine. The silence of the concrete garage was absolute. I got out of the car and walked straight back into the hospital. The smell of antiseptic hit me again, but this time it smelled like fuel. I did not go to the elevators. I did not go back toward the ICU. I walked directly to the main information desk in the atrium. A kind-faced woman in a blue blazer looked up. "Good afternoon," I said, my voice perfectly even. "I'm looking for a patient's room. The name is Vance, Harrison Vance." The woman tapped on her keyboard. She frowned, tapping again, checking different spellings. She looked back up at me, her expression polite and final. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said. "We have no patient by that name registered in the entire hospital system." I drove home to Weston, the 20-mile drive a complete blank. I parked in the driveway of our beautiful, empty colonial, a house I had picked out, a house I had filled with furniture, a house that now felt like a sterile, oversized evidence box. I did not cry. Crying is a luxury. Crying is for grief, and this was not grief. This was an audit. I walked past the living room, past the photos of us smiling on vacations he had apparently never taken, and went straight to my study. I bypassed my personal computer and opened my work laptop, the one issued to me by Veritas Financial Forensics. The glowing logo felt like an old friend. This was my territory. My hands were perfectly steady on the keyboard. Emotion is a liability in my job. You follow the data. The data tells the truth. I started with what I knew our joint finances. I logged into our primary checking account. Everything looked normal, predictable. Mortgage payments, utilities, our bi-weekly cleaner, dinners at restaurants I remembered. It was a perfect, curated picture of a stable marriage. But I was not looking at the picture. I was looking for the brushstrokes. Years ago, when Liam had been complaining about the clumsy interface of our bank's website, I had shown him a workaround, a way to create a sub-account linked to the primary one that would not show up on the main summary page or the paper statements. A small reporting loophole in the code meant for short-term escrow holds. It was a parlor trick, an accountant's idle observation. He had used it. I navigated to the back end of the portal, and there it was, a secondary account, active for 14 months. I did not need to cry. The rage was clean, cold, and efficient. It was rocket fuel. I opened the account ledger. The numbers began to tell the story. First, the recurring payments, a transfer of $6,000 every single month. On the first, the payee, Seaport Residential Holdings, LLC, a high-end apartment in Seaport, a nest. Second, the credit card charges, a separate American Express card, one I did not know existed, paid off in full each month from this hidden account. I scanned the charges. The emergency trip to New York was, in fact, a 4-day stay at the Wawanet in Nantucket. The client conference in Chicago 2 months prior had been a week at a private rental in Martha's Vineyard. There were dinners for two at restaurants I had never heard of, flower deliveries, high-end boutique purchases. And then I found it. A charge from 3 days ago. A single transaction. Cartier. The amount matched the approximate value of the cushion-cut cocktail ring I had seen on her hand. He had not just been comforting a client's daughter. He had been celebrating with his mistress. I saved the statements. I downloaded the transaction history. I was methodical, but as I scrolled through the last month of activity, something else caught my eye. It was different from the romantic, illicit expenses. It was a single, large payment, $150,000. It was a wire transfer, made 2 weeks ago to an entity I had never heard of, Apex Strategic Consulting, LLC. This was not an affair expense. This was not flowers or jewelry. This felt different. It was too large. It was structured like an investment, a very shady, very quiet investment. My heart was beating a cold, steady rhythm against my ribs. I opened the professional databases I use at Veritas. I was no longer a wife. I was an investigator. I ran the name Chloe Vance. The results populated instantly. No connection to any Harrison Vance. No link to any major corporate entity. Chloe Vance was a lifestyle influencer. Her social media was a curated feed of expensive brunches, designer clothing, and inspirational quotes about living your truth. Her truth, apparently, was funded by my husband. There was no sick father. There was no client confidentiality. There was only the lie. I ran a check on Apex Strategic Consulting, LLC. It was a shell corporation, registered in Delaware 6 weeks ago. No public-facing website, no listed partners, just a mailing address, which was a post office box in Wilmington. A cold, heavy understanding settled over me. This was not just a man having an affair. This was a man building a fortress. My husband, the charming personal wealth manager, was not just cheating on me. He was building a parallel financial empire, and he was using me, my money, and God knows who else, to do it. The data I had was a blueprint of his infidelity, but it was incomplete. I had the what, but I needed the why, and, more importantly, the how. How had he built this second life so seamlessly? What narrative was he spinning for her? A direct confrontation was pointless. He was a pathological liar. But Chloe was vain. She was an influencer, and she was, I suspected, not nearly as smart as she was beautiful. I created a new email address. It took less than 5 minutes. I became Amanda Sterling, a senior event coordinator for the fictitious New England Women's Leadership Foundation. I found Chloe's business inquiries contact on her social media profile and drafted a message. I praised her impactful digital presence and her authentic voice for young female entrepreneurs. I invited her to be a keynote speaker at our annual Empowering Women Gala in the fall. I mentioned a significant honorarium in the presence of major media outlets. Her reply came in under an hour. She was incredibly honored and deeply passionate about empowerment. She was available to meet for coffee immediately. We agreed on a time for the following day at a chic cafe in Back Bay, a place I knew she frequented from her social media posts. I arrived first, choosing a quiet booth. I wore a charcoal gray actress dress and my hair in a severe professional chignon. I was Amanda Sterling, a woman of means and influence, a woman who organized galas, not a woman whose life had just been detonated in a hospital lobby. Chloe swept in 10 minutes late, a whirlwind of perfume, expensive denim, and feigned apologies. She was radiant, energized, and completely self-absorbed. She ordered a matcha latte with 3 specific types of non-dairy milk. I am so excited about this, she gushed, flashing the Cartier ring as she tucked her hair behind her ear. Empowering other women is, like, my core mission. We're thrilled you're interested, I said, my voice smooth and measured. Our foundation believes that a woman's success is so often tied to her support system, the people who champion her. Oh, 100%, she agreed, nodding enthusiastically. I am just so lucky. I have the most incredible fiancé. He's my rock. That's wonderful, I said, taking a sip of my black coffee. Finding a true partner is rare. Isn't it? His name is Liam. He's this absolute genius in wealth management. He handles everything for me. He's so protective and smart. I allowed a small, warm smile to touch my lips. I was the architect of this conversation, and she was walking exactly where I needed her to. He sounds like a wonderful family man. Chloe's expression faltered, just for a second. A cloud passed over her bright face. She leaned in, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. Well, she sighed, that's the one complicated part. His family. He was actually married before, a long time ago. He's divorced now, obviously, but the ex-wife, she just won't let go. You know the type. A little bitter. Can't accept that he's moved on and is happy. My blood turned to ice, but my expression remained one of polite sympathy. The ex-wife. So I had already been discarded. But Chloe was not finished. She leaned in even closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Honestly, she's not even the real problem. It's his sister. He has this sister who... it's very sad, but she's not stable. Psychologically, She's completely obsessed with him, has been for years. She blames him for everything, but she also follows him. It's why we have to be so careful and keep the engagement low-key for now. He's trying to protect me from her. The room tilted. The soft chatter of the cafe, the hiss of the espresso machine, it all faded into a dull roar. Chloe continued, oblivious. He warned me she might show up and try to make a scene. Can you believe it? She actually did. Just yesterday. We were at the hospital visiting a friend of his who was sick, and she just appeared, staring at us. It was terrifying. Liam had to get her out of there. He was so shaken. She shook her head, her eyes wide with manufactured drama. He's just too good. You know he still feels responsible for her. It was not an improvisation. It was not a panicked lie in a hospital lobby. It was a narrative, a story he had carefully constructed over months, painting me as a deluded, obsessed, mentally unstable sibling. He had retroactively erased our marriage and demoted me to a pathetic, crazy sister to make his new life cleaner. The coldness I felt before was nothing. This was a new, focused, crystalline rage. I looked at her, at this gullible, self-absorbed girl he had chosen. That sounds incredibly difficult, I said, my voice a perfect mask of concern. He's lucky to have you. I put my coffee cup down. The Amanda Sterling persona evaporated. My voice, when I spoke, was flat, cold, and stripped of all polite pretense. Chloe, Liam is my husband. We are not divorced. We have never even been separated. She recoiled, her face hardening instantly. "Oh my God," she whispered, her eyes wide with a different kind of fear. "You're her. You're the sister. You're the crazy stalker." She started gathering her purse, her hands shaking. "He warned me. He said you were unstable. He said you might try something like this. I am calling the police." "I am not his sister," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. I did not raise it. I did not argue. I reached into the leather portfolio beside me and slid a thin file across the table. She stared at it, suspicious. "You're an influencer," I said. "You deal in images. Look at these." Her hand hesitated. Then, her curiosity won. She opened the file. The first page was a copy of our marriage certificate, dated 11 years ago. The second page was the summary page of our joint tax return from last April, clearly showing our names, married filing jointly, and our Weston address. The third page was a printout of the bank ledger from Liam's secret account. It showed the monthly $6,000 payments to Seaport Residential Holdings. She scanned the first 2 pages, her brow furrowed in confusion. Then she got to the bank statement. She saw the dates. She saw the payments. She saw the charge from Cartier, dated 3 days ago. The color drained from her face. Her skin, so perfectly moisturized, went a sickly, pale gray. She looked from the papers back to me, her mind frantically trying to reconcile the narrative of the crazy sister with the federal tax document in her hand. "The dates," she whispered. She was processing the timeline, the 14 months of rent, the tax return from this year. "He's not just cheating on you." "Chloe," I said, pushing the file gently toward her. "He's cheating on both of us. The difference is, he's using my name to do it, and he's using your money." That broke her. The pretty, cinematic tears from the hospital were gone. This was an ugly, gasping sob. Her mascara, which she had probably paid a lot of money for, began to run. "My money," she choked out. I waited. When a dam breaks, you do not interfere. You just watch where the water goes. He manages everything for me," she finally admitted, the words tumbling out. "My father died 2 years ago. I inherited a lot. Liam said he would handle it, that he would protect me." She looked up at me, her eyes a desperate, terrified mess. "He said he was investing it. He told me it was all going into a private biotech fund. Something about a new patent. A flash. The hospital. The sick patient. Lie. "That's why we were at St. Jude's," she cried, her voice cracking. It wasn't. He said we were there to meet one of the key investors who was sick, that he needed the investor to sign off on the final transfer of my funds. He had me sign papers, right there in the lobby. My brain made the connection, cold and sharp. The $150,000 payment to Apex Strategic Consulting, LLC, the shell corporation. The sick investor was a ghost, a prop in his play. He had used the sterile, urgent atmosphere of a hospital to pressure her into signing away the last of her inheritance. "He's not investing your money, Chloe," I said, my voice cutting through her sobs. My professional brain had taken over completely. "That fund doesn't exist. He's laundering it. It's a shell company. He's stealing from you, and he's using your money to build a new life and buy you trinkets." She stared at me, her mouth open, the full scope of the disaster finally landing on her. She looked like a child. I had no sympathy to offer, only a transaction. I leaned forward. "So, you have a choice. You can sit here and cry about the man you thought he was, or you can stand up right now and help me get every single cent of your money back." The cafe was no place for this. I paid the bill, grabbed Chloe by the arm, she was still dazed, and hailed a cab. "Where are we going?" she sniffled. "To my office," I said. "This is a client emergency." The Veritas Financial Forensics offices were dark, the bullpen a sea of black monitors. The only sound was the hum of the servers. I badged us in through 3 levels of security and led Chloe, who looked ridiculously out of place in her influencer outfit, to my glass-walled office. I hit the lights, the whiteboards, covered in flowcharts from my other cases, lit up. "Sit," I commanded. "I need the login credentials he gave you, for the biotech fund portal." She fumbled with her phone, her hands still shaking, and read them out to me. I logged in. The portal was beautiful. It was branded, slick, with graphs showing impressive, steady returns, a 9% growth, quarter over quarter. It was utterly fake. It was a picture of a bank vault, not the vault itself. "This is a lie," I said, already clicking out of it. "I need your actual bank logins, the ones for the inheritance account your father left you." She gave me those, too. Now. I had the real ledger. I toggled between her bank records and the file I had built on Liam. "The biochem fund he mentioned," I said. "Does it have a name?" "Apex," she whispered. "Apex Strategic something. He said it was very exclusive." My fingers flew. There it was. The $150,000 transfer from my secret joint account. And here, in her records, were multiple, massive transfers to the same entity. 200,000 here, 400,000 there, over $2 million in the last year, all to Apex Strategic Consulting, LLC. "First discovery," I said, my voice clinical, talking more to myself than to her. I ran the LLC through my firm's database, pulling its corporate registration. The fund doesn't exist. Apex is a Delaware shell company. Liam registered it himself 6 weeks ago, listing a mail drop as its principal address. "But the returns?" she stammered, pointing at the fake portal. "He sends me statements. He's sending you an allowance, Chloe, paid with your own money." I went back to the Apex bank records, which I now had probable cause to access. I followed the money out. It did not stay in the Apex account for more than an hour. It was immediately siphoned. "Second discovery," I said, tracing the wires. "He's not investing it. He's stealing it." The money was split. A significant portion, over $1 million, was wired directly to a high-risk crypto exchange. I could not see the final wallet, but I knew Liam. He had been talking about hard wallets for months. The rest was laundered through a second shell, this one in the Cayman Islands, and used to purchase a beachfront condo. I pulled the property records. The deed was in his name alone. "He's buying hard assets, Chloe. In his name," With your inheritance? I stopped. My blood ran cold. There were other deposits coming into the Apex shell, not just from Chloe. I saw 2 other names I recognized. They were clients at Ascend Capital, Liam's firm. I ran them. Mary Beth Carmichael, 72, widowed 2 years ago. Her husband had founded a logistics empire. Sarah Pennington, 68, widowed last year. Her husband had been a prominent surgeon. Both had come into massive liquid wealth. Both were Liam's clients. "Oh my God," I whispered. "What?" Chloe asked, her voice small. "Third discovery," I said, the pieces clicking into place with a sickening snap. "This isn't just theft, it's a Ponzi scheme." I mapped it on my screen. "He's taking money from the widows, using a fraction of it to pay you your dividends to keep you happy, and wiring the principal to his personal offshore accounts. He's running a sophisticated multi-million-dollar fraud scheme right inside his own firm." I finally understood the hospital. The sick investor. "The papers he made you sign," I said, turning to her. "That was the final transfer. He was liquidating the last of your portfolio. He was cleaning you out." I picked up my desk phone. I knew Marcus would be awake. He never slept well in hospitals. He picked up on the second ring, his voice gravelly. "Elena." "Marcus, I'm at the office. I have a situation. It's Liam." I did not give him the emotional story. I gave him the audit. I spoke in facts, figures, and corporate entities. I named Ascend Capital, Apex Strategic, the widows, the wire transfers. I laid out the entire Ponzi scheme, from inception to the Cayman Islands condo. There was silence on the other end. Then, I heard a deep, cold fury I had not heard in years. "That son of a bitch. I have the proof. Marcus. The wire confirmations, the deeds, the shell registrations. It's all here." "Good girl," he said, his voice hard. "Don't move. Don't touch anything." "I'm making a call. I have a friend from my old prosecutor days. He's high up at the SEC. I've been sitting on a favor for 15 years. I'm calling it in." He hung up. Chloe and I sat in the buzzing silence of the office for 10 minutes. I just stared at the data on my screen, a monument to his greed. My phone rang again. It was Marcus. "Elena," he said, and his voice was completely different. It was sharp, energized. "You just hit a nerve, a very big nerve." "What do you mean?" "Ascend Capital has been on an SEC watch list for 6 months. They knew there was a ghost in their system. They were seeing massive, unexplainable outflows from their wealthiest clients' accounts. But they couldn't find the source. The internal audits came up clean. They couldn't find the architect." He paused, and I could almost hear him smile. "It's him, Elena. Your husband isn't just a player. He's the whale. You just caught the whale." Hanging up with Marcus, I looked at Chloe. Her tear-streaked face was hardening. The soft, gullible influencer was gone, replaced by a woman who had just seen her entire future stolen. "The SEC is involved now," I said. "They will freeze his assets. They will arrest him. But that's not enough." "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice raw. "They'll get him on financial crimes. He'll go to prison. But they won't destroy him. They won't make him feel the humiliation he put us through. He painted me as a crazy sister. He painted you as a fool. I'm not interested in justice. I'm interested in a public execution." The plan formed in my mind, not as a messy scribble of revenge, but as a clean, multi-phased audit. We would not just catch him. We would make him condemn himself in front of everyone who mattered to him. For the next 24 hours, I worked, with Marcus feeding me information from his SEC contact who was ecstatic to finally have their whale. I built the dossier. It was not just a collection of bank statements. It was a work of art. I created flowcharts that showed every dollar moving from the widow's accounts, through the Apex shell, and into his crypto wallets and offshore properties. I printed copies of the fake biotech portal alongside the real empty bank accounts. I finalized a 30-page forensic report that was as cold, precise, and irrefutable as an autopsy. While I built the weapon, I coached Chloe. I hardened her. You are not a victim, I told her, pacing my office as she sipped the black coffee I'd given her. You are the bait. You have to play the part he wrote for you, one last time. She practiced. Her hands shook, but she made the call. She pitched her voice to be trembling, terrified. Liam, she sobbed into the phone. That woman, your sister. She found me. She came to the cafe. She said you were married. She showed me these papers. Liam's end, which I had her put on speaker, was a string of furious, muffled curses. Where are you? Did you talk to her, Chloe? She is sick. She is a pathological liar. I know, Chloe cried, hitting her cue perfectly. I did not believe her, but she scared me. Liam, I'm scared. I can't sign the last transfer papers. Not until I see you. Not until you tell me it's all okay. Please. There was a long pause. I could hear him calculating. The final tranche of her money, millions, was on the line. His greed was a predictable variable. Okay, he finally said, his voice tight with forced patience. Okay, baby. I'll fix this. I'll fly back from New York tonight. I'll come to the apartment tomorrow. 10 o'clock. We will sort this out, just you and me. He hung up. Phase 1 was set. Now, for Phase 2. I picked up my own phone. I knew Liam's boss at Ascend Capital, a man named Arthur Caldwell. I'd met him at half a dozen charity dinners, smiling on Liam's arm. Arthur, this is Elena Harlow, Liam's wife, I said, my voice urgent but professional. Elena, what a pleasure. Is everything all right? No, I'm afraid it's not. I'm calling in a professional capacity, from Veritas. I was reviewing some of our joint accounts, and I've stumbled onto a significant irregularity. It seems to originate from inside your firm. It's bad. Arthur, it involves multiple client accounts. I let the professional terror sink in. I need to meet with you, immediately, tomorrow at 10:30. And Arthur, given the potential liability, you are going to want all of your senior partners in that room. My God, he stammered. Of course, we'll be ready. In the main conference room. Yes, I said. The large glass one. I'll see you then. Phase 2 was set, but I needed one final piece. The personal touch. I dialed the last number. A number I despised. Liam's mother, Meredith. A woman who believed I was nothing but a middle-class anchor holding her brilliant son back. Meredith, it's Elena. Elena, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. How unexpected. I'm calling with the most wonderful news, I said, infusing my voice with a bright, chipper tone I knew she hated. Liam has just closed the most incredible deal. A truly massive success. The partners at Ascend are planning a small surprise for him tomorrow morning to celebrate. Around 10:30. I know how much it would mean to him if you were there when they announced it. I could hear her preen through the phone. Her son, the success. Her, the proud mother. A surprise? Oh, well, I suppose I could clear my schedule. It's about time they recognized his value. 10:30. You said, at the Ascend offices. Yes, I said, smiling at the whiteboards. He'll be so thrilled to see you. The trap was built. All the actors were in place. The whale was swimming right toward the harpoon. I was in the bedroom. The air was hot and still. I had been sitting in the dark on a ludicrously expensive Italian suede chair for an hour, a high-fidelity directional microphone in my hand, aimed at the adjoining living room. The door to the Seaport apartment was so heavy, I did not hear him enter. I only heard his voice, booming with false charm. There she is, my God. You look beautiful. Chloe. I heard the sound of a kiss, the rustle of a flower wrapper, the heavy thud of a champagne bottle Dom Perignon, no doubt hitting the marble countertop. Oh, Liam, I heard Chloe say. Her voice was a perfect blend of breathless relief and lingering fear. She was a better actress than I had given her credit for. "I am so sorry, baby." His voice was a low, comforting purr. "I flew back the second I got your message. You should never have had to deal with that. I am so sorry." She was horrible. "Liam," Chloe sniffled. "She said, shh. Do not even think about it." He cut her off. "I told you. She is problematic. She's been obsessed with me for years. It's a sickness. I've tried to get her help. She fixates. She makes things up. You are my life. She is a sad, pathetic distraction. Now, let's forget her. Let's celebrate us." I heard the pop of the champagne cork, a muffled sound. He was a professional at this. I heard the clink of glasses. "Here," he said, "to us, to our future, and to getting all of your assets safe, away from anyone." There was a silence. I imagined her taking a sip, her hand trembling. "About that," Chloe said, her voice small. "What is it?" His tone was still patient, but I knew his rhythms. The edge was there. "It's just, I'm still scared." She said such awful things. "Chloe, we're done talking about her." I know. It's just to prove her wrong, to make me feel safe again. I just need you to explain. This was it. The moment I had drilled her on. "Explain what?" Liam's voice was sharp. "She gave me this. It's a bank statement, I think. She said it was yours. She said you were buying things." I heard the rustle of paper, the single sheet I had given her, the one showing the wire transfer to Apex Strategic from his hidden account. The silence in the other room was absolute. The charm had vanished. The air pressure in the apartment changed. "Where did you get this?" he asked. His voice was no longer a purr. It was flat, cold. She left it," Chloe stammered. "Liam, what is it? What is Apex Strategic?" "It's a holding company, for a new investment. It's complicated." He was lying, but the slickness was gone. He was on his back foot. "But," she said that was her money. Chloe pressed, her voice breaking. "She said you were married, and that was your secret account, that you're stealing from me." "She is a liar," he suddenly roared. The violence of it made me jump. "Then just explain it," Chloe cried back, her practiced fear turning real. "Please, Liam, I love you. I just need to understand. Why does it say you're married on these tax forms? Those are fakes. She faked them, God. Chloe, you are being so naive after everything I've done for you. You're going to believe her. A crazy, obsessed woman who has been stalking me. I don't know." "Give me the papers," he snapped. "The transfer papers. Just sign them, and I will make all of this go away. We can get on a plane tonight, go to the Caymans, see the condo I bought for us, but you have to sign." He was pushing too hard. The greed was making him sloppy. "No," Chloe whispered. The word hit the microphone like a gunshot. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. "No, not until you explain what Apex is. Not until you tell me why you told me your mother was dead." A long, heavy pause. He knew he was caught. The performance was over. "You stupid little girl," he hissed. The venom in his voice was pure. "You think you're smart. You have no idea what you're messing with. You want to play games. Fine. You're not getting a cent. Without me, you are nothing. I will lock down every account. I will make sure you are in the street by tomorrow. You will have nothing." I smiled in the darkness. That was it. That was the confession. I pressed stop on the digital recorder. My hands were perfectly steady. I tapped the screen, attached the audio file to a new email, and typed in Marcus's private address. I pressed send. I left the Seaport apartment through the service elevator. I took a cab straight to the financial district. I walked into the lobby of Ascend Capital at 10:29 a.m., carrying my Veritas portfolio. The main conference room was on the top floor, a glass box overlooking the harbor. Arthur Caldwell and 3 senior partners were already seated. They looked tense, annoyed, like men whose valuable time was being wasted. They looked like men who were about to lose millions. "Elena," Arthur said, not standing up. He gestured to a chair. "Thank you for coming. You mentioned an irregularity." I did not sit down. I walked to the head of the table and placed my laptop down. "That was a courtesy." "Arthur, I'm not here for an irregularity. I'm here to report criminal activity." The annoyance on their faces vanished, replaced by a sharp, focused fear. "What is this?" one of the partners asked. "This," I said, plugging a USB drive into the room's main monitor, "is my work, a full forensic analysis, courtesy of Veritas, of a sophisticated Ponzi scheme being operated directly out of your firm, by your top earner, Liam Harlow." I clicked, and the 60-inch screen lit up. I did not present theories. I presented facts. The first slide was a flowchart. At the top, the client accounts of Mary Beth Carmichael and Sarah Pennington. Arrows showed massive, unauthorized transfers. The money flowed into the Shell Corporation. Apex Strategic. From there, the chart split. One arrow pointed to Chloe Vance, showing the small, regular dividend payments. The other arrows pointed to a crypto exchange and an offshore account in the Caymans. The final slide was the deed to the beachfront condo, in Liam's name. The room was utterly silent. I could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Arthur Caldwell's face was white. One of the partners was breathing heavily. They were not seeing a crime. They were seeing their own liability. They were seeing lawsuits. They were seeing the end of their firm. "This is—" Arthur started, his voice a dry rasp. Right on cue, the heavy glass door swung open. "Surprise!" Meredith Harlow swept in, wearing a fur-trimmed coat despite the mild weather, a wide, triumphant smile on her face. She was holding a gift bag from Hermes. "Where is he? Where is my brilliant boy?" Her smile froze. She took in the scene, the ashen faces of the partners, me, standing at the head of the table like an executioner, and the massive screen behind me, displaying a chart of her son's grand-scale theft. Her eyes darted from the words Shell Corporation to offshore accounts. "What? What is this?" she whispered, her celebratory tone gone. "Elena, what have you done?" Before I could answer, the door opened again. Liam strode in. He looked perfect. His suit was impeccable. His hair was perfect. He had the confident, slightly annoyed look of a man pulled from important work. Arthur Caldwell had, as instructed, paged him for a client emergency. He saw me first. His confident expression faltered, a flash of pure hatred in his eyes. He must have thought I'd come to his office to make a scene. Then his eyes traveled. He saw Arthur Caldwell and the senior partners, their faces grim. He saw the screen, his entire secret empire laid bare for them to see. And finally, he saw his mother, standing by the door, the Hermes bag slipping from her fingers, her face a mask of horrified confusion. He looked back at me. The trap was shut. The walls were glass. There was nowhere to run. Liam's instinct was to lie. It was as natural to him as breathing. He composed his face into a mask of wronged innocence and even managed a short, humorless laugh. "This," he said, gesturing to the screen and then to me, "is a misunderstanding, a rather pathetic one." He looked at Arthur Caldwell. "Arthur, I apologize. My wife, Elena, we are in the midst of a personal dispute. She's not well. She's vindictive. This is a fantasy she's constructed to try and embarrass me, a private marital spat. I'm horrified she's dragged you into it. A personal dispute." The voice came from the doorway. It was clear and cold. Chloe walked in. She was not the trembling girl from the Seaport apartment. She was wearing a sharp black dress. her hair pulled back. She looked like a witness. She walked past Meredith, past Liam, and came to stand directly beside me. Liam's composure shattered. The blood drained from his face. "Chloe, what are you doing here?" "She's here as my primary witness." I answered for her, my voice cutting through the silence. "And as your primary victim?" Chloe turned her gaze, not to Liam, but to his mother. She looked directly at Meredith, who was still clutching her Hermes bag. "Ma'am," Chloe said, her voice steady, "your son told me that you were dead. He said you died 5 years ago, and he told me that his wife," she gestured to me, "was his mentally unstable sister who was stalking him." Meredith's mouth fell open. A small, strangled sound escaped her. The financial crime was abstract, but this was a social bomb. The humiliation was pure, personal, and absolute. The thought of what her friends would say, the thought of the lies he'd told about her, it was a deeper wound than any theft. Arthur Caldwell had heard enough. His firm, his reputation, his personal liability. It was all on the line. He looked at Liam, his face a mask of cold fury. "Liam," he said, his voice quiet but final, "you are fired. Your access is terminated, and as of this moment, you are under formal investigation. Get out of my conference room." "You can't," Liam stammered, his bravado finally crumbling. "Arthur, you can't just—" "I can, and I have." But before Liam could even move, the glass doors swung open a final time. 2 men in dark, conservative suits stepped in. They were not police. They were not Ascend employees. Their energy was different, federal. "Liam Harlow," one of them asked, his voice polite but carrying an unmistakable weight. Liam's entire body seemed to deflate. He looked at me, a look of such profound, animalistic hatred that it barely registered as human. "We need to talk to you, Mr. Harlow," the agent said. It was not a request. He was from the SEC. Marcus's call had been perfectly timed. They flanked him. As they began to escort him out, Liam stopped and looked back at me, his eyes searching for what remorse regret a sign of the woman he had married. I gave him nothing. I simply reached up and calmly adjusted the collar of my silk blouse. I was an accountant, and the books were balanced. As they guided him out of the glass room, past the open plan office where dozens of employees were now standing, frozen, watching the firm's star broker being walked out by feds, I turned my back. I picked up my cell phone. I dialed the number for St. Jude's Mercy. "Hi," I said, my voice warm. "I'd like to send a gift basket to Marcus in the cardiac recovery wing." "Yes, the largest one you have." I ended the call. I looked at Chloe. She was watching Liam disappear, her expression unreadable. I nodded toward the door. We had work to do, assets to recover. I picked up my portfolio. She picked up her purse. And together, we walked out of the conference room, leaving the partners to deal with the ruins.